The officer had just arrived. He took a long look at the object, then said out loud to the small group of soldiers standing there, "What the fuck is it? It's not big enough to hold a person." "No idea, Sarge," came the reply, as they all looked on in wonder at the 4-foot sphere, silver greyish in colour, that was sunken into the ground in the woodlands just a few miles away from the nearest town. "Maybe it's a spy probe, Russian or Chinese," said another. The officer replied, "Well, whatever it is, air support will be here soon. They can deal with it and take it away before the public comes snooping. I think I already passed media vehicles on the way here. Make sure nobody gets near, and if any questions asked, tell them a light aircraft has crashed. The less people know, the better." Another day, another dollar. It was 5 p.m, the end of another working day. Barney sighed out of his computer, stood up and headed off towards the cloakroom to get his jacket. Walking towards the cloakroom, he spied Dave, coming from the opposite direction. Oh no, he thought to himself. Dave was known as the company's space cadet. How he managed to pass random drug tests puzzled Barney. "Hey Barney," said Dave, "what do you think of this latest so-called comet?" Barney looked at him, shook his head with a smile, and said, "It's just like all the other interstellar objects, flying lumps of rocks. That's all, not aliens like numpties like you think they are." He grabbed his jacket to put it on. "No, this one is passing closer," said Dave excitedly. "I'm telling you, it's alien intelligence. You watch, they'll be sending probes to spy on us. That's the word on social media anyway." Barney replied to Dave as they walked past him, Yeah, whatever. See you tomorrow." Then had a chuckle to himself. In the staff car park, Barney waved to the other colleagues, then got into his car. As soon as he started the engine, the radio came to life. He caught a bit of the local news. A small aircraft had crashed, not far from where he lived. "Geez," he thought to himself, "not another one. That's 4 planes went down and over the whole country in the last few days. What the hell's going on?" He then put on some easy listening music and drove off to start the half-an-hour journey to his home. He got out of the city onto the boring motorway. A few miles down the road, his mind wandered a bit. He was thinking about his belly and was looking forward to his wife's home cooking when he got startled. 2 Chinook military helicopters flew low overhead. At home, Betty was making the dinner. Macaroni cheese, Barney's favourite. Betty was enjoying making home-cooked meals again after being made redundant from her job in the local store. Financially, they were okay, as Barney was in a high-paying job, making software for military hardware. While she didn't like the idea of profiteering from wars in far-off lands, Barney put her mind at ease, saying it wasn't him pushing the button on whatever missiles or drones the software was getting used for. The macaroni was cooked and ready for draining to be mixed with her 3-cheese sauce with added mustard to bring out those lovely flavours. She picked up the pot and walked to the sink. She was just starting to pour the hot water out when she was startled by a loud noise going over the house. She let out a small scream as she dropped the pot, getting a small splash of hot water on her fingers. "Damn blast," she shouted as she saw 2 helicopters fade into the distance. Luckily, all the parts had landed in the colander. A small miracle, she thought to herself. A short while later, Barney pulled into the street. It was a quiet neighbourhood, nothing much happened there. Only twice in 15 years since they lived there had there been major issues with break-ins from unsavoury folk from the dodgy part of town. All the houses now had doorbell cameras and alarms, but that didn't stop some rough-looking drug-induced individuals snooping around occasionally. Now in the driveway, Barney got out of the car, entered his house, locking the door behind him. He never took chances. Betty greeted her husband. "Just in time for dinner," she said. "Great," said Barney. I'll just get ready," as he dashed off to change into more comfortable clothing. Minutes later, both of them sat on their sofa with their dinner. Barney switched on the TV. The news was on, and a story about the plane crash was just finishing. "I wonder if that's what those helicopters were going to," said Betty. "Oh, you've seen them too?" "Not sure," said Barney. "Yes, made me burn my fingers," she replied, as she showed him 2 slightly red digits. "Ouch," said Barney. "Anyway, let's watch the movie we seen advertised the other day," as they switched the TV to a streaming service. The film was just starting, and the first forkful of macaroni was going down when they both heard a noise coming from outside. "Did you hear that?" said Betty. "Yes," Barney replied, as he paused the movie and put down his dinner. "It sounded like a scream," he said as he got up and went over to the window that looked onto the street. "Can't see anything. Maybe someone fighting or an argument. It's quiet now." There was a slight pause in his speech. "Oh, wait. There's 2 people on the path outside our garden. They've just stopped, and one of them is looking at a tablet or a phone, and are now staring at our house. Probably salesmen or some so-called religious lot," said Betty. Barney replied, "Yeah, if there's a knock at the door, I will ignore it," as he turned away from the window and back to the sofa and had his dinner. He sat down, grabbed his plate and the remote, and unpaused the movie. They were just settling down when they heard a noise at the door, like someone was coming in. Betty and Barney both looked to their left and got a fright for their lives, and for a moment were like deer caught in the headlights. The 2 strangers who had been outside were now standing in their living room, staring at them. They both looked off. Human, but not human. Faces with jet black eyes and strange skin, like it was some kind of Halloween mask. Before Betty and Barney could do anything, one of them spoke. "We live here now." "Who the fuck are you?" said Barney in a raised voice as he threw down his plate and stood up. The other stranger looked at the wall in their room and seen a crucifix. It smiled and then turned to face the frightened couple and said, "We are children of God." Both now smiled with sinister grins as they moved towards the couple. Barney lurched forward. There was a brief scuffle and a cracking noise. A screaming Betty jumped up to help, but the screams didn't last long. The battered and broken Betty and Barney lay motionless on the floor. The strangers, now sat on the sofa, started eating the macaroni. "This food isn't too bad," said one. "Yes, I could get used to this," said the other. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. One of the strangers answered it. Standing there was John, a neighbour from across the road who worked for the government. "You not changed yet," he said, as his eyes flickered from blue to black, and back to blue again, then smiled. The stranger replied, "Oh, it's you. Come in. Welcome to our home."